So, I want you to imagine an army, right? But their absolute greatest strategic advantage is that they are actively dying of terminal diseases.
Right, which is just, I mean, it's a completely wild concept to start with.
It really is. Like, today we are doing a deep dive into the Death Guard, and we are looking at a military faction that doesn't just, utilize biological warfare. They actually embody it, like at a cellular level.
At a cellular level, yeah. We are pulling all of this from our core text today, which is The Inexorable Tide, a study of the Death Guard.
Yeah, and the mission for this deep dive is, well, it's not your standard breakdown of tactical warfare or territorial conquest. We are exploring the absolute farthest extremes of, like, cosmic horror, twisted resilience, entropy.
It's heavy stuff.
Oh, totally. We're
Well,
analyzing the living, breathing, rotting embodiment of inevitable decay. So, whatever stress you're dealing with today, like if you're having a bad day, just compare it to this apocalyptic, universe-ending despair we're about to get into.
yeah, your bad day might suddenly look pretty manageable. Because the central theme that echoes through their entire trajectory, it's just a profound tragedy, honestly.
Yeah.
We're looking at this highly disciplined, immensely proud, and extraordinarily resilient group of warriors, the Forfili Legion of the Great Crusade.
Forfili Legion, right.
Exactly. And we're tracking how they became the exact precise thing they would have once fought against with every fiber of their being.
Which is such a crazy inversion.
It's a total inversion. They were transformed from these stoic defenders of humanity into a literal walking plague, a force that, exists solely to spread the horrific afflictions of a dark deity known as Nurgle, the plague god.
Right, Nurgle.
Yeah, and it's a story of total inversion, like you said.
Yeah.
Because the very qualities that made them magnificent are the exact qualities that made their downfall so absolute and just so catastrophic.
Okay, so to understand how these beings became the ultimate symbol of the universe's death, we kind of have to rewind the clock, right?
We do. We have to look at the crucible that forged them.
Exactly. And this planet, it's called Barbarous. And Barbarous wasn't just a harsh environment or like a difficult frontier world. It was a toxic death world.
Yeah, Death World is the technical term in the lore, and it earns it.
Oh, big time. The text literally called the atmosphere of this planet a poisonous soup.
And we really need to linger on the mechanics of that environment for a second, because a poisonous soup for an atmosphere means that the very act of breathing, just breathing, is an act of defiance.
Just drawing breath is a struggle.
Exactly. The ecology of Barbarous is in this state of constant, unrelenting hostility. And, it wasn't just the ambient environment that was trying to kill them.
Right, it's never just the weather with these places.
No, of course not.
Yeah.
The inhabitants of Barbarous lived in constant fear of these tyrannical warlords, and these warlords ruled from the mountain peaks, like way up high above the worst of the toxic fog.
Oh, wow, so they get the clean air, relatively speaking.
Right. So you have this population trapped down in the valleys, literally choking on a toxic atmosphere, existing in a state of perpetual terror from these predatory overlords swooping down on them.
Which, psychological and physiological implications of being born on a world that is actively trying to kill you on multiple fronts, it's just staggering to think about.
You cannot afford to be fragile on Barbarous at all.
No, absolutely not.
The environment necessitates this culture of extreme, uncompromising stoicism. I mean, to survive both the poisonous soup and the warlords, you must become utterly unyielding.
Utterly unyielding, that's a good phrase for it. Because think about what that does to a culture over generations. Imagine a superhero for a second.
Okay.
But their entire origin story isn't like getting bitten by a radioactive spider or being born on a utopian alien world. Imagine their entire origin story is just surviving an endless planet-wide hazmat situation.
A permanent hazmat situation, yeah.
Right. Their superpower isn't shooting lasers out of their eyes. It's simply the ability to not die when literally everything around them is lethal.
They are defined entirely by their capacity to endure pain, to endure poison, and to just keep walking forward.
But, looking at their origins, I kind of have to push back on this idea of resilience.
Oh, how so?
Well, we always frame resilience as a purely positive trait, right? Like, it's the ultimate virtue. Be resilient, bounce back. But does surviving a perpetually toxic world actually make a group truly strong?
That's a fascinating question.
Right. Or does it merely numb them to the horrors of decay? Because if your entire baseline for existence is pain and poison, you might not even recognize a worse poison when it finally seeps in. You know what I mean?
You might just accept it as normal.
Exactly. You just accept it.
And that cuts right to the heart of the tragedy here, because we do tend to view resilience as an impenetrable shield, like a permanent defense mechanism.
Yeah, a good thing.
But the reality of the Death Guard suggests something far more insidious. The very traits that made the Half-Weight Legion under the command of their Primarch, Mortarion perfect survivors on a toxic death world, actually perfectly primed them for their eventual transformation.
Oh, man. So their greatest strength.
Was their ultimate vulnerability. Their stoicism, their immense capacity to endure a suffering, their physical hardiness. They were essentially conditioned from birth to accept agony as a standard state of living.
So it's like they were pre-broken in a way.
Exactly. While this extreme, numbing resilience kept them alive on Barbarous, it set the stage for a downfall unlike any other. Because think about it, when you are unyielding, you don't bend.
Right. You don't yield.
Right. And when a force comes along that is greater than your capacity to endure, you don't bend, you just break.
Wow. You just snap. So, okay, we have this incredibly tough, unbending legion, practically marinated in poison from birth. They're shaped by terror and fundamentally defined by their refusal to die.
Yep, the ultimate survivors.
And they survive Barbarous. They become the formidable 4V Legion of the Great Crusade, tasked with conquering the stars. But then we hit the turning point.
The big one.
The event that takes them from the unyielding survivors of a death world to, the walking embodiment of a nightmare. And this happens during that massive galaxy-spanning civil war, the Horus Heresy.
Right.
And the catalyst is this thing called the Destroyer Plague.
A Destroyer Plague. This is the absolute damnation of the Death Guard. And what is absolutely critical to understand about this turning point, according to our sources, is the specific nature of their fall.
Because it wasn't typical.
No, not at all. The Death Guard's damnation came not through a moment of ambition. It was instead a slow, agonizing descent into Nurgle's embrace.
Which is so different from the other fallen factions.
Completely different. Their fate was sealed by a bargain struck in the depths of hellish agony.
See, that distinction regarding ambition changes the entire complexion of their lore. Because usually, when we look at stories of great falls from grace, whether we're talking historical analysis, mythology, or, cosmic fiction, the tragic flaw is almost always hubris.
Hubris, exactly. It's always pride.
Right. Somebody wants too much power. They want to overthrow an empire, or they want to become gods themselves. They reach too far and they fall. But that is not what happened to the 4B Legion.
No, it's a profound contrast between ambition and agony. The tragedy of the Death Guard is the tragedy of a stoic, unyielding legion that wasn't corrupted by a desire for glory or conquest or wealth.
They just wanted to endure.
Right. They were broken by unimaginable pain. The Destroyer Plague wasn't some political maneuver they miscalculated,
It wasn't a bad trade deal.
Right. It was a biological and spiritual absolute. It was an agony so profound, so inescapable, that their legendary resilience, the very thing that defined them on Barbarous, was actually turned into an instrument of torture.
Oh, wait. Because they could survive it longer.
Exactly. Because they were so hard to kill, because they were so unyielding, they survived the plague far, far longer than anyone else would have.
Oh, that is horrific.
They endured levels of suffering that would have mercifully killed a lesser force in a matter of days.
So if their defining trait was being unyielding, how do they finally break? Like, for you listening, think about this. Is there a terrifying threshold where supreme resilience actually becomes a trap?
It absolutely becomes a trap.
Right. Does it force you to endure levels of suffering that would mercifully kill anyone else until you are literally backed into a corner where you have absolutely no choice but to make a deal with the devil, just to make the pain stop?
Because the disease won't kill them.
Exactly. If the disease doesn't kill you, but the pain just scales infinitely, your own body is essentially keeping you hostage.
That's a perfect way to put it. Your body becomes the prison, and your resilience becomes the warden.
Jeez. That's grim.
It is grim, and this frames Nurgle, the plague god, in a deeply terrifying light. He is not a traditional conqueror who, defeats armies with overwhelming tactical force or brilliant strategy.
He's not outflanking them.
No, he is an opportunistic entity. He preys on endless suffering. He introduces a disease that causes agony so absolute, so infinite, that the victims will agree to literally anything for relief.
Anything to make it stop.
Exactly. Nurgle doesn't offer victory. He offers salvation, but it is a salvation that comes exclusively through damnation.
Wow.
The bargain isn't, serve me and I will give you power over your enemies. The bargain is serve me and I will take away the pain of the rot by making you the rot.
It's extortion, like it's cosmic biological extortion.
That's pure extortion. And this forced bargain It fundamentally inverted their psychological reality. I mean, they were forced to accept the very thing they would have natively fought against.
Which creates a massive psychological break.
Huge. To survive that cognitive dissonance, to survive the reality of becoming what they hated most, they had to adopt one of the most disturbing philosophies imaginable.
Okay, let's get into that philosophy.
Yeah.
Because we've established they are now damned. They are infected with diseases that should, by all laws of nature, reduce them to just a puddle of biomatter.
Right.
But they possess immense, grotesque resilience, and they have fully embraced the decay that would destroy lesser beings.
Yeah.
And here's the part that is just truly difficult to wrap your mind around.
Yeah, this is where it gets weird.
Right. They view the horrific infections they spread to the galaxy not as weapons and not as a curse, but as the gifts of their patron.
Gifts.
Yeah, gifts. The text defines them by a horrifying paradox of joy and despair.
The psychology of extreme trauma and adaptation is just on full display here, because you have to ask, why is disease framed as a gift in the source text?
It makes no sense on the surface.
Right. But when a being suffers so profoundly from a plague, when the agony reaches a level that breaks an unyielding will, how do you move forward? The only way to conquer the paralyzing fear of that disease, the only way to escape the despair of being eternally sick, is to actually become the disease.
To embody it completely.
Exactly. It's a radical, twisted form of psychological self-preservation. By embracing the rot, by finding joy in spreading despair to others, they effectively resolve the massive cognitive dissonance of their own eternal rotting.
Okay, wait, I can't entirely buy that. I mean, cognitive dissonance is one thing, right? You can trick yourself into accepting a bad situation, sure. But actual joy.
Yes, actual joy.
How do you feel joy when your organs are literally liquefying and your armor is rusting to your flesh? That sounds like pure madness, not just a psychological adaptation.
Oh, it is madness, absolutely. But it's a structured madness dictated by the terms of their damnation.
Okay.
You have to look at it through the lens of what they escaped. The Destroyer Plague was a pain so total that it broke beings who were literally built to withstand toxic death worlds.
The ultimate pain.
Right. So when Nurgle lifted the pain of the disease without actually removing the disease itself, the sheer contrast, that sudden miraculous relief from infinite agony, completely rewired their perception.
Oh, I see. It's the pain stopped.
Exactly. They associate the rot with salvation because the rot is what they were left with when the pain finally stopped.
Wow.
Every time they infect a new world, every time they spread these so-called gifts, it validates their own existence. It proves to them that their surrender wasn't a cowardly defeat, but a moment of enlightenment.
They think they're doing a good thing.
Yes. They're sharing the truth of the universe as they now understand it. That everything rots, and to fight the rot is to suffer. But to embrace it is to find peace.
It's like a deeply twisted cosmic version of exposure therapy.
Oh, that's a brilliant way to frame it.
Right. It's like they realized they could never, ever cure the sickness. The sickness is now fundamental to their biology. So instead of fighting it, they just redefine sick as the new healthy.
Yes.
If you become the plague, you no longer have to fear catching it. You no longer have to fear the degradation of your body because degradation is now your baseline. You've normalized the nightmare.
Exactly. They normalized it to survive it.
But, you know, logically, you would assume that a faction entirely devoted to rot, a group of beings literally falling apart at the cellular level and embracing chaos, you'd think they would eventually just dissolve.
Right? You'd think they'd just fall apart.
Yeah. You'd think they would devolve into a mindless, shambling mob, just a chaotic wave of disease vectors with no direction, slowly marching until their bodies finally give out.
Yeah.
However, the reality of the Death Guard is much more dangerous and, honestly, much more terrifying than that.
Which brings us to one of the most compelling parts of the source text. This is where we encounter the concept of rotting cohesion.
Rotting cohesion.
Yes. Despite their outward appearance of absolute chaos and decay, the Death Guard maintain a surprisingly organized and cohesive military structure.
Which makes no sense for a rotting horde.
It seems counterintuitive, but it stands as a testament to their disciplined past. This is the horrifying fusion of what they were on Barbarous and what they have become under Nurgle.
Okay, so the text talks about organized entropy. That phrase alone is a complete oxymoron to me.
It really is.
Disease and decay are inherently chaotic processes. Like you leave an apple on the counter, it doesn't rot in a neat symmetrical grid.
No, of course not.
It just collapses organically, breaking down wherever the bacteria takes hold. But the Death Guard have somehow weaponized this chaotic collapse through a rigid military structure.
Yeah, we are looking at a worse of both worlds scenario here.
Totally.
You have the relentless, uncontrollable spread of a highly virulent biological agent, right?
Yeah.
But it is being directed with the tactical precision of an elite military force.
It's horrifying.
It is. The deep-rooted discipline that they forged in the toxic valleys of Barbarous, that unyielding stoicism, that ability to follow complex orders and maintain rigid formation in the face of absolute terror, it didn't just disappear when they struck their bargain.
It carried over.
Exactly. It survived the Destroyer Plague. The plague broke their bodies, and it broke their allegiance to humanity, but it did not break their military doctrine.
So for the listener, visualize this. It's like looking at a massive skyscraper that is actively collapsing from rot. The steel is rusting. The concrete is crumbling to dust right before your eyes. But then you look closer, and you realize the termites eating the building are perfectly following an architect's blueprint.
That's a great image. Creepy, but great.
Right. They are destroying the structure with terrifying, deliberate precision. The rot has a plan. But, my question is, how does that actually function logistically?
Logistics are tricky, yeah.
Like, if your vocal cords are literally rotting away in your throat, how do you issue commands on a battlefield? If your neurological pathways are decaying, how do you process complex tactical data?
Well, this is where the supernatural element comes heavily into play. The supernatural nature of their damnation sustains their function just past the point of failure.
Just barely keeping them operating.
Right. Their armor, which is rusted and corroded, literally fuses with their distended flesh.
Right.
It becomes one organism, and their communication isn't just auditory anymore.
Not just radios.
No, it's a shared, warp-infused resonance of the swarm. They don't need pristine radios because their very decay connects them to the hive mind of the plague god's forces.
That is deeply unsettling.
It really is. And because they maintain this cohesion, they aren't just a biological hazard that you can quarantine or wall off. They are a thinking, strategic adversary.
Right, you can't just put a dome over them.
Exactly. They can execute complex flanking maneuvers, they can coordinate artillery assaults, they can respond to shifting battlefield dynamics, and they do all of this while simultaneously radiating a localized apocalypse.
They have taken the chaotic, unpredictable nature of disease and forced it into the rigid mold of a legion's order of battle.
That's exactly it.
So, if you have a highly disciplined army of eternally rotting, plague-worshipping warriors who act with strategic precision, what does it actually look like when they go to war?
It looks inevitable.
Right, which brings us to their combat doctrine, which perfectly matches the title of our source text, The Inexorable Tide.
On the battlefield, they are a terrifying force of nature. Their tactics are not based on lightning-fast strikes or complex ambushes or overwhelming technological superiority.
None of the usual stuff.
None of it. Their combat doctrine is designed solely to maximize two things: their durability and their connection to the plague god. This is the ultimate strategy of weaponized survival.
Weaponized survival.
Yeah.
That completely subverts traditional military thinking.
Oh, completely.
In most conflicts, the goal is to defeat the enemy as quickly and efficiently as possible, right? To minimize your own losses. You want shock and awe. You want to outmaneuver the opponent so you don't even have to take a hit.
But the Death Guard don't care about their own losses in the traditional sense.
Because they can't really die.
Right. Because their extreme resilience means they can endure an absurd amount of punishment. Their tactic is simply to outlast. They maximize their durability to turn a defensive trait, which is the ability to take a massive amount of incoming fire, into an offensive weapon.
So their entire strategy is basically a biological war of attrition. They've essentially weaponized just standing there. I mean, how do you even fight an enemy whose only goal is to let you exhaust yourself while you slowly catch whatever they're carrying?
It's incredibly difficult. The mechanics of their combat doctrine revolve entirely around their physical presence.
Just being there.
Just being there. They don't necessarily need to defeat you by outshooting you. They just need to survive your attacks long enough for their proximity to kill you.
Proximity is a weapon.
Exactly. They are a walking hazard zone. Every moment you spend engaging them, you are breathing in their spores. You are being exposed to their supernatural contagions. Even your equipment is corroding from the localized entropy they project.
The guns literally rust in your hands.
They advance slowly, methodically. They just absorb whatever artillery you throw at them, knowing perfectly well that while you are frantically trying to kill them, you are inevitably succumbing to their toxic presence.
It's completely demoralizing. I mean, think about it. If you shoot them, they don't die.
Right.
If you get close to them, you get sick and die.
Yeah.
If you run away, they just keep walking forward slowly until they eventually corner you.
There's no good option.
It's the military equivalent of a glacier made of disease.
Mhm.
You know, you can't outflank a glacier, and you certainly can't shoot it to death. You just have to watch it slowly crush everything in its path.
That's a perfect analogy. And that slow, unstoppable battlefield tactic is not just a way to win wars. It is essentially a microcosm of their entire cosmic purpose.
How so?
Well, their combat doctrine is a physical manifestation of the existential threat they pose to the universe itself.
Which brings us to the ultimate existential dread.
Yes, yes. The source concludes by stating the Death Guard are the embodiment of the Imperium's greatest fear.
And humanity's greatest fear, really.
Exactly. The triumph of decay and despair. They represent the end of all things, the inevitable collapse of hope, and the final, putrefying victory of chaos.
That's so bleak.
It is. They are a grim reminder that the universe itself is dying, and that the only response they offer to that fact is to embrace the rot.
See, this elevates the analysis for me. We go from a study of a military faction with weird tactics to pure cosmic philosophy.
It really does transcend just the lore.
Right. The Death Guard are the living embodiment of entropy. Like in physics, the second law of thermodynamics states that the total entropy, the measure of disorder or randomness of an isolated system, can never decrease over time.
Everything falls apart.
Eventually, everything breaks down. Stars burn out, mountains erode, cells die. The universe is slowly, inevitably moving toward a state of maximum entropy, a state of cold, uniform decay.
And the Death Guard are that scientific principle, but personified, with armor, bolters, and a malevolent will.
They're the second law of thermodynamics with a rotting pulse.
That is exactly what they are. You know, the Imperium of man and humanity as a whole fights for order. We build walls, we establish laws, we create medicine, we try to preserve history.
We try to keep things going.
Right. We are constantly expending massive amounts of energy to create structure and to hold back the dark. We operate on the fundamental hope that tomorrow can be better, or at least, that tomorrow can be secured.
Yeah.
But the Death Guard represent the absolute horrifying certainty that all of that effort is ultimately futile.
Because it's all going to end anyway.
Yes.
And this connects to everyone listening, too. Like, you and I, everyone listening to this deep dive right now, we fight against decay every single day.
In small ways, all the time.
On a micro level, yeah.
Right.
We brush our teeth so they don't rot out of our heads. We fix the leaky pipes in our houses so the drywall doesn't mold. We change the oil in our cars so the engine doesn't seize.
We go to the doctor, we take vitamins.
Right, exactly. Our entire existence is a constant, exhausting battle of maintenance against the natural forces of entropy. We are hardwired to fight the rot.
It's our nature.
And the ultimate horror of the Death Guard isn't just that they look scary or that they are hard to kill in a firefight. It's that they ask the most terrifying, demoralizing question possible. What happens if you just stop fighting the inevitable?
What if you just let go?
Yeah. What if you just stop?
Because the Death Guard don't just want to kill you, they want to prove to you that your struggle for order is a delusion.
A total lie.
Right. When they march across the battlefield, shrugging off artillery fire, spreading plagues that turn steel to rust and flesh to liquid, they are demonstrating the futility of resistance.
They're proving their point in real time.
Exactly. They are the physical manifestation of the thought that wakes you up at 3 a.m.
Oh man, that thought.
You know the one.
Yeah.
That thought that none of this is going to last. Everything ends, crumbles, and rots. And the thing is, they have made peace with that.
More than peace, they found joy in it.
Yes, they have found joy in it, which makes them completely alien to everything we understand about the drive for self-preservation and progress. It's just so heavy. We've traced an incredible, tragic arc today. I mean, we started on Barbarous, right? This toxic death world that forged the Ataro Legion into a force defined by absolute stoicism.
The ultimate survivors.
Right, they were unyielding and unbreakable. But then we saw how that very resilience became their trap.
During the Horus Heresy.
Yeah, the Destroyer Plague didn't corrupt them with ambition like the other factions. It broke them with inescapable agony. They endured pain that would have killed anyone else until they were literally forced to strike a bargain with Nurgle in the depths of hell.
And then we analyze that terrifying psychological adaptation that followed.
The paradox of joy and despair.
Exactly, the horrifying paradox where they resolved the trauma of eternal sickness by finding joy in the rot. They became the disease to conquer their fear of it.
Which is just wild to me.
And despite looking like a chaotic mess of decay, they retained that rigid barbarian discipline, creating this nightmare of organized entropy.
Rotting cohesion. Yes. A rotting cohesion that translates into a battlefield strategy of pure attrition. The inexorable tide. They just walk forward, absorbing damage, waiting for you to choke on their toxic proximity.
It's a war they literally can't lose as long as they just keep walking. They are not mere soldiers, but the philosophical and physical embodiment of cosmic decay. They are the end of all hope, the final victory of chaos, and a dark mirror reflecting our own daily, futile struggles against the universe's inherent entropy.
It's a profound text.
It really is. But before we wrap up today's deep dive, let's push that philosophical boundary just a little bit further for the listener to mull over.
Let's do it.
We've unpacked how their extreme resilience kept them alive on a death world, but ultimately primed them for this horrific transformation.
Right. And here's a thought to leave you with. If it was the Death Guard's extreme, unyielding resilience, their absolute, stubborn refusal to die under the most agonizing circumstances imaginable that ultimately forced them into an eternity of putrefying damnation,
Yeah.
is there a point where simply surviving at all costs becomes the ultimate curse?
Oh, wow. In a dying universe where the rot is inevitable and the pain is infinite, could the willingness to finally let go be a greater strength than holding on forever?
It is. Yeah, that is something to think about. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the inexorable tide. It's not an easy topic, but it challenges how we think about strength, survival, and the very nature of order and chaos. Keep questioning the narratives around you, keep looking for the deeper meaning in the structures you see, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.